somewhere in Texas, South Dakota. This is Pages, Panels, and Beyond.
Hey.
There I am.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right.
Can you hear my dog clearly in the background there?
Yes, it's okay.
Here, I'm going to actually close the door for a second.
Okay, no problem.
Charlie can get a little excited.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We have Brad Perri, who is the cartoonist and creator of the comic strip Pirate Mike. Tell us a little bit about Pirate Mike.
He is a pirate who has been to live in a 21st century suburb by mischievous little sprites, which are these evil little spirits that apparently pop up throughout history, and they have a particular affection for making Pirate Mike miserable. So Mike is adjusting to life very poorly in the suburbs, and he occasionally takes adventures, but more often than not, he is stuck at work at the Pizza Pirate restaurant or at home with his wife, his kid, and his dog, and usually doing household chores incorrectly along those, and parenting fairly poorly. So that seems to be how Mike is making his days go by. I started doing Pirate Mike in October of 2013, and I just had this idea of a little pirate cleaning the gutters. I don't know where this came from. And then I drew a strip up, and I kind of enjoyed him, and I've been doing him ever since.
Pages, Panels, and Beyond will return after these messages. We now return to Pages, Panels, and Beyond.
Now, has he always been a webcomic?
Yeah. How did it start? Well, my wife very kindly, 1 year in, I think it was 2012, decided that she wanted me to do the comic shirt thing that was on the Go Comics site. And back when it was a pay-to-play thing where, you pay them and you to put your stuff. Ideally, when Sherpa returns, I think it's going to be free, and you can put your stuff right up there, which would be nice. And yeah, so I started putting it on Comic Sherpa, and then eventually I started saying, let's put it on, a web. I put a site up. And then I started posting it to people on social media, and I said, let's give them a Facebook page. And right now, and I think you and I both exchanged quite a few notes, is on Instagram, which I think has been really good for comics.
Oh, I do too. So you were on the Sherpa site. How many times a day? How many times a week do you post, Pirate Mike?
Nowadays, since I got picked up, Pirate Mike got picked up by Go Comics a couple of months ago, and it started. So I'm posting right now 5 times a week. I post Monday through Friday. And, well, you know what? It's the good thing about having that much. Usually, I've gone back and forth. I've done once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. I've got strips built up over the years that now I can use as a buffer, because right now I'm finishing up. I'm posting every Monday through Friday, but I'm finishing a batch of new strips, and as soon as I'm done with, I wanted to have them done this week, but I'm hoping I'll have them done the week after next, and I'll start posting those. It's a new about 30 strip adventure for Pirate Mike, and then once that runs its course, and that'll be Monday through Friday, and I'll probably post strips out of the archives again until I can build up another batch of new strips.
Now that you're on Go Comics, what's changed?
What's changed? Gosh, you know what? Very little, to be honest with you. I say that what I'm focused on primarily is my work habits. Trying to make sure that, as someone who is not syndicated in the newspaper, someone who does not make his living off of this, like most other folks, I do a job, and really what it is has changed to saying, okay, look, if I really want to do a strip Monday through Friday, considering that I really envision Mike someday as a full daily strip, and I want to have it to have elements of the old continuity strips, like Terry the Pirates, Little Abner, Popeye, stuff like that, Thimble Theater. I need to at least have it Monday through Friday.
Right.
Saturday and Sunday, folks go home, so to speak. But they're stuck at a computer at work, and they're willing to look at a comic strip every now and then.
Yeah.
So that was really changed now, saying, hey, look, how am I going to do this on a sustainable basis moving forward, so that I know I've got strips available Monday through Friday.
So I know on Go Comics, they have a really good way that readers can reach out to you and leave comments. Do you get a lot of that?
I've been very fortunate. I try to one of the nice features I think about Go Comics is exactly what you're talking about, is this ability to interact with folks who comment on your strip. Now, not everybody has the time or the inclination to do that. I'm very fortunate. I have about a handful. I've only been on there. Mike's been on there since October 18th, so a month and a half. And there's about a handful, 5, 6 people who really do comment every day. And that's been very rewarding. One of the reasons I wanted Pirate Mike on Go Comics, as you know yourself doing your own strip, is you want an audience that has an interest in actual comic strips.
Right.
The internet, the social media comics lend themselves more to meme style comics, standalone gag strips. And I'm hoping with Go Comics that it can give me a little more access to a readership that is more familiar. Some people, not all of them, but folks are more familiar with the idea of an ongoing storyline occasionally to a strip, rather than someone going, well, gee, that didn't end with a punchline today. I don't understand.
Yeah. Punchlines are hard.
They really are. And every now and then one will come to me. I'll get a strip and it just pops into my head, almost fully formed, and you know it when you got it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, aha, that thing works. The rest of the time, and that's the majority of the time for me, it is a boy. I think this is funny. How
Yeah.
are folks going to react to it? And
Yeah.
you know, and then there's the other bunch, the other batch where you put there and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know about this one. I'm hoping it's good, but it's not my favorite one. It's one of my least favorite ones. Or I'm putting it out there because maybe it passed a friend whose judgment I trust, and they really gave a good response to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be shaking my head thinking, why like that one? That's not one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one that I have a couple of those where people I always get a good response for them, and it mystifies me. So it's a little bit of all of the above.
Yeah, it's really strange what your cartoonists are alone in their studio, and it's really strange
Right.
what you think is funny or what you don't think is funny, and when you put it out there, it's just taken in ways you wouldn't even imagine.
Yeah, it really does. And it's a scary thing too. It definitely makes you realize when people say that your characters take on a life of their own,
Mm-hmm.
they really do.
Yeah, they do.
Quite literally.
With Go Comics, did they have any? Do they give you any kind of editorial suggestions or?
No, this is not a development deal. This isn't one of
Mhm.
those things where I'm going to work with one of the editors at the shop in Kansas City, and we're going to work together to shape this thing and get it
Right.
out to a newspaper.
Okay.
That maybe that would happen in the future. I would say that the chances of that happening are itty bitty really slim. Like something really crazy would have to happen, I think, where either I hit on something where they thought, oh wow, hey, he really took this in a direction we weren't anticipating. We need this thing out there. Or equally likely, someday the thing goes viral, I pick up 1 million followers, and it's a no-brainer. What I have them is a digital syndication deal where they do provide me on their what we call the main page in Comic Sherpa land. We always call it moving up to the main page, and that's how my arrangement works with them. Now that said, when I was submitting it, for concession, I was very fortunate. And I received comments from one of the editors there and one of the editors who works with them offsite, and very extensive comments in one case. And the only reason I don't want to go more into detail is I don't want it to, there's always that thing. It's kind of it's pretty amazing to get comments at all.
Oh yeah, I understand.
But so it was one of those rare circumstances where maybe they just felt sorry for me. And I sent in Pirate Mike a couple of times. I'm like, oh boy, this guy just keeps sending this in. I feel terrible. But they did give me some good comments along the lines of world building.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and what really occurred to me is the new Wallace the Brave book had come out, and Wallace is one of those strips that they developed, like Phoebe and her Newborn, that they developed to newspapers. And Will Henry himself is such a nice guy. And I went through the Wallace book, and I noticed that he had drawn up an entire map.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, and it just hit me. I'm like, oh, he needs and because my dad was always saying, my dad's a huge Little Abner fan, and he was always, you've got to do something like Dog Patch. And I understand what you're saying. And then after I got a couple of those comments back, I thought, oh, yeah, and that's why I came up with the idea that, well, I just, I don't know what the place looks like even now, quite frankly, I'm making it up. But that's where I came up with, let's call it something. Just give it a name, Coconut Falls. Okay.
Yeah, you kind of take for granted that where he lives. You kind of have a visual image maybe in your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know what
else you do? Well, we all do. I mean, I think, and that's one of the neat things is that you just said it. Here's the weirder twist I would put on it. I think I know where he lives. And then you start developing it and you realize the idea. You're like, oh wow, gee, okay, well, what does it look like when he's walking down the street? What does it look like when he's sitting in his room if he's out? Because I do have him, this isn't one of those situations where he's hiding in the basement or something. I mean, he has a job. so a little bit along those lines. They kind of, I think, wanted to see a little more of a cohesive world that he lived in. And so I kind of looked to, I did look to Wallace the Brave for that, and I looked to Lil Abner for that in particular.
Pages, Panels, and Beyond will return after these messages. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at youtube.com/user/channel Siskart. Also, be sure to hit the little bell to be notified about new episodes.
What's this? Absolutely nothing. Boring. Make that sad shirt happy! A galaxy of shirts to choose from!
We now return to Pages, Panels, and Beyond.
Yeah, Wallace the Brave is definitely one of those new classic strips. You know, that's just destined to be a classic. Like, just came out of nowhere almost.
Yeah. Well, you know, he had done Ordinary Bill, which I really liked, and then he stopped doing it. I was pretty bummed out. And I remember the day they launched Wallace on the Go Comics site, and it was just one of those things. I just saw the first strip, and you know, you just get a feeling like at the between your shoulder blades, bottom of your neck. Oh, well, there it is. You know, you don't have to explain this. That's what that real problem is. You want to submit strips and you want to get comments back and you want to get into this exchange. At some point, they need to get that feeling at the base of their skull or in the back between their shoulder.
Right.
There's nobody who can tell you. It's not like they can sit down. Any editor can sit down and say, well, you know what you really want to do if you want the next Calvin and Hobbes is you need to do these 5 things. Well, right. If we could all do that, we'd bottle it and we'd all be millionaires. But Wallace had that effect on me, was definitely that initial, you know, pop. I've already looked into, you know, I wanted to go to Planet Comic-Con as the one down in Kansas City. And they've already sold all their tables.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they do. I'm like, I missed it last year. And I thought, okay, I'll really get on top of things this year. I'll look it up in November. I think they do it in March. Nope, it's all gone. They're already done.
Oh,
so
wow.
List.
You have a lot of Pirate Mike collections, books?
You know, I have 2. Wait, no, 3. Take it to 3. And one of them, the third one, the most recent one, is available at Indie Planet. It collects the last, you know, year's worth of strips. The first 2, I do not have any available for. What I've got to do is up them to the Indie Planet site so people can buy them. They can buy them either digitally, you know, PDF, or I think DBZ file, or they can even buy a print copy. I mean, you know this, you know, as well, if not better than I do. You've been doing continuity longer than I have. Getting other folks to understand that you're not doing a continuity comic strip because you are too lazy to do a comic book. You know, is I've had, I think we've all come across the discussions, and it's a one that has to be had. Are you in the right form for the kind of story you want to tell? You know, and I, you know, well, you should really be doing a comic book. You know, you've got this, and I'm like, maybe you're right. I don't know. I don't care. I really want to do that rhythm of every day something comes out.
Yeah, and in the comic strip has a certain beat. You know, there's it follows a certain beat that you probably couldn't have Pirate Mike in a comic book. You know, well, I guess you probably could, but it wouldn't be the same. You know, the beats wouldn't hit the same.
Well, right. I mean, I've thought about, okay, well, if I did, have one of his adventures usually could run about X amount of pages. And then, structure like one of the old Harvey comics where you do, a 1-page gag or maybe a short 2-page story or, hey, heck, do a couple of pages of just gag strips and put the but I got to be honest with you. When I was a little kid, I read it was either superhero comics or nothing. And the superhero comic books, I should say, any of the comic strips like Garfield, well, I expected, a book. I read them in the collections, of course, but I never expected, like you're saying about the rhythm, I never expected them to follow a comic book rhythm. You start in these stories that are told, and like you just said, it's a weird thing. Like you ever pick up the Peanuts comic book stories? Yeah, they're weird.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
they're strange. And it's because I think I think that's a great point. I never really thought about it like what you just said, but just the seeing them in a comic book, it's just a whole different experience. So I'm not inclined to put Pirate Mike in that situation. I just kind of I love the idea of just the drip of the comic strip. And then after a period of time, you look back and it's like pointillism. It's a full, you don't even really know that you were making when you yourself were making the strip. And I like that. Yeah. I like that because it gets away from this weird myth we have now of the the person who sit there, well, I came up with this, unitary vision, and I've just been really spelling it, playing it out since I made it up in my head. Well, that's not all how I work. I mean, I don't think many comic strip artists do. It kind of takes on a life of its own, and you go where it takes you.
Yeah, it's almost the stream of consciousness sometimes, and the characters dictate kind of where you're going to go next, especially with me doing the continuity strip. I might have, it's hard for me to plot too far ahead because I got to know what they do today so I can figure out kind of what they do tomorrow, and it's they usually dictate it,
Well, and I learned, it's funny you say that because I've read 2 things. Actually, one of them I heard is an old interview with Al Cap talking about how he would write Little Abner. And Cap would come up, they go into a meeting. I mean, Cap, of course, had a full studio working.
Oh, yeah.
And they go in, they'd have a story conference, just like a TV show. They'd pick an idea, then Cap would go off and write what he would call a synopsis, which is basically saying, okay, here's the middle and here's the end. It's not like he's doing a full script. This isn't full script method. It's more like the Marvel method. But then he comes in and he would write then the dialogue for the first week. Okay. And he would place that dialogue then over the panels for the first week. Then they go back and they would stick figure it all in. Okay. And that's how they would do it. So even Al Cap there, maybe he's saying the whole time, he's like, but that's always every time that I'm doing it, it's subject to revision. I'm not saying, I have to reach this ending. It's just a way to get started.
Pages, Panels, and Beyond will return after these messages. We now return to Pages, Panels, and Beyond.
Milt Caniff, the Tearing the Pirates leader, Steve Canyon.
Yeah.
I read a piece he wrote for one of these famous cartoonists courses, and I don't think Caniff so many different ways. Caniff.
I think it's Caniff.
I don't know. I think it's Caniff too. But then I was listening to this Al Captain and he's called Caniff, and they're bees. So I'm like, well, really,
I've never heard it referred to as Caniff. That's weird.
little Al Cap did. And so for a while I was doing it, and then I'm listening to the Library of American Comics guys, and they're all saying Kniff. I'm like, I don't care. Milt, so Milt, but that's already taken. But I've said Kniff in his piece says that he's got some loose ideas, but he's not doing like a script ahead of time.
Right.
And he says if he would start getting mail during the course of a storyline where his readers he felt had picked up on what was going on, in the middle of the story he would change it. I see. Because he didn't. Yeah. So it's a very malleable, it's not this idea that we're writing a script. It's not the DC, and I'm sure Marvel, everybody does whatever they want. It's a full script to the storyboard or to the art. Yeah. It's a much more fluid, flexible improvisation. It's much more like jazz, I guess, in that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's jazz. It's jazz.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a general idea about where I'm going, where I want to take this. But here we go. Yeah. And I think that's part of what I always like doing, even as a kid, doing comic strips more than comic books, is because something intuitively I knew comic book, graphic novel, comic book, that I needed a full script and I would get bored. The difference that I'm doing with this round of comics, because I'm still, as always, experimenting with this stuff, is I did a little bit of the Al Cap thing where I'm like, okay, let's see if I can just come up with like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I get a three act structure out of this, which eludes me consistently, and it gives me great pleasure to read old great comic strips and watch them just throw it all out though and just end a storyline. Yeah. Like, I don't know where to go with this. It all blows up and start the next storyline. Yeah. And so I've been doing that. I did that, and then what I did is I just started going through on the computer on Clip Studio and write in digitally. Okay, here's the dialogue. I know what's going on in this strip, and here's the dialogue. And I just dialogued the whole strip for about, I don't know, 25, the whole story, I should say, for about 25, 30 strips. And as I'm going, I'm kind of thumbnailing it out too. And now once I get it, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's roughly a story. Well, that's just the first pass. Now I got to go through it again. I print it out. Let's read it. Let's see if it makes sense. How big are the holes? They're going to be holes, right? In the story, how big. And then once I have that, then I go back, and this is where I'm ripping off Milt Kniff, is Kniff would do, he'd ink the characters. So you have fully inked characters. Then you go back, then you do the backgrounds. I see. Which for me is a big deal because backgrounds are non-existent, and I would like to make them much better. That's part of one of the things that really turned me onto your feed was this. You would actually show how you, write your strip. I was fascinated by that. I couldn't believe the level of detail that you'd go into in your thumbs and your I'm like, yikes. And that's where it's good that I think all of us, it makes you up your game. You learn, hey, look, this is the level of work that goes into getting this storyline out there. And it's I think we really, one of the great things about the internet, it's you, me, Will, or whoever, we really have an opportunity to learn from each other in a way that hasn't, in my opinion, been possible for comic strip artists since the early 1900s. Absolutely. Newspaper days, which I wish we could have had, which would have been nice because you get a job as an ink rat, an ink monkey. It's just you have to go around and refill everybody's ink bottle, and in the process you get watch these guys make comics. Yeah, kids take it for granted nowadays what they have with the internet. I mean, when I was like 8 and into cartooning and stuff, you had to go to the library, checked out the books on how to draw the Marvel way, and then suddenly it's all detailed. That we all loved. Yeah. And there was probably no way, unless you wrote the syndicates and maybe somebody answered you, there was no way you could talk to anyone, or ask any artists any questions. And now it's just amazing what you have available. it's very mysterious. When I was a kid, I agree with you. It was well, how do you even like the idea of doing comics was kind of like, well, yeah, I'm gonna go play in the NBA someday. You know, it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
how do you do that? How do you even make? And I mean, like everybody else, you know, I made, but there was always the thing like, why do mine suck so much? You know, and it took me years to figure out. Well, it's because they were inking it.
Oh, I see.
You know, they suck. Like, it never occurred to me that they were like pencils. What pencil? Like, I always see the credits, pencils and inks. I don't understand. What does it even mean?
Yeah.
Like, then you're doing like, I don't mind lines. You know, well, Brad, because you're using a big pen.
Yeah, I used to use a big pen and ruled notebook paper, and I was wondering what was wrong with my strip, you know, and I just had no idea. Gosh. What kind of comics did you like as a kid? Like, what comic books did you read?
Oh, Iron Man. It
Man?
was Marvel.
You're more of a Marvel guy?
I was definitely a Marvel kid. I watched the old 1966 Marvel superhero cartoons basically they just put the art on the screen. So it was great. You're basically watching what they would call now motion comics.
Yeah.
And you got to see Jack Kirby, you got to see Steve Ditko, you got to see Gene Colan, all of those guys, all their art is on those cartoons. And I became a huge Iron Man fan. So then it was, of course, you go into the Avengers and Captain America. DC just did not, the characters did not you know, tell me what Oliver Queen was like. Tell me what Barry Allen is like.
Yeah.
What about Hal Jordan?
Right.
You know, now tell me about Peter Parker. Well, you know, he's a nervous kid. Tony Stark. Oh, he's the, you know, I just gravitated to the Marvel characters. Now for comic strips though, I used to get our Sunday comics. I had no idea that there were thing as a daily comic strip.
Oh wow.
Okay. It was the Sunday comics and the weekday comics in the paper that I had. The selection was terrible. It was a suburban paper, just awful, which inexplicably started carrying Bloom County, which turned out a good thing for me. But when I was a kid, they would get their Sunday comics in comic book form.
Oh wow.
You know, I always, hey, these are comics everything's in a comic book. Okay, at some point. And then when I was, of course, like a lot of us, you know, when Garf came out, I was about 10 or so. And my cousin had bought a couple of Garfield books. And that was where it's like, well, let's start making our own.
I think everybody's got a Garfield story. Anybody like around our age, it's Garfield.
Yeah. I mean,
even before
I love it when people,
you know?
Well, Peanuts and Garfield. You're right.
Yeah.
It's Snoopy and Garfield.
Yeah, I knew Snoopy through the cartoons first. Then you know how when you're younger you think things are one way. I always thought it was the Christmas specials, and then I realized, oh, this is in the newspaper every day. But yeah, I guess Garfield was the first one where I collected all the books. Now I haven't read Garfield in years, but when I was a kid, like Family Circus, for some reason I'd get the Family Circus books at like garage sales, and I loved those and Garfield. But I was more of I wasn't really either a Marvel or a DC guy. I liked Spider-Man and I liked Batman.
I'm still scarred by what was it, the 1978 Captain America, where he's got the translucent.
Yeah.
Or even when I was a kid watching that thing on TV, I knew that was just a bomb. What awful.
The motorcycle helmet and I did as a kid. I liked the Spider-Man show.
I did. I liked the Spider-Man show
but
too,
it got
and I also
worse.
liked the Hulk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the Hulk.
Well, Spider-Verse, because it has Spider-Ham in it.
I know. I was just about to say that.
That's great.
I know.
That's what I'm most excited about is Spider-Ham.
I know. I've got to get the toys.
I was one of those kids when Star Comics or whatever, when they first came out, I bought the Spider-Ham comic.
I did too.
Okay.
I had them too. I wish I still had them.
Yes, I do. And I tell you what, they stand up well.
Oh, that's good. What do you think is harder, either writing or the art? What's the hard part for you for creating your strip?
It's funny. It's changed. At first, it was the art, I thought. Now it is the writing.
I see.
I'm not as worried about. I've gotten my art to a point where it does what I need it to, or I want it to do for the most part.
Okay.
There are parts where it's like I look forward to getting better at it, and not sitting here going. I'm hoping to continue improving, meaning that I'm able to express myself. You know how I just
Thank you.